Morning. Happy Friday to everyone. Thanks for joining. I will jump right in. It looks like we're up to about 250 people online, so we're going to start. Thank you for joining us. It's Friday morning, 10 o'clock Central, RE Journal's Breaking Through the Disruption webinar series. Today's topic is construction and COVID and what's going on there. I'd like to thank our sponsors. First off, Premier Design and Build Group. And I can't even read these logos, so I'm going to come back to that and make myself a list. But thank you, sponsors. If you have connection issues, which has been a problem with everybody learning to work from home, we have a button that's reconnect. That's the best way if somebody freezes up on your screen or you can't hear anybody talking, click that reconnect button. The second thing to try is make sure you're using Google Chrome. That's been the best browser to go to. If that doesn't work, close your browser out, find the link and log in again. If we have connection issues, I've got a panic button. Panic button should reconnect everything. And then we have another panic button that can send you a new link. So if our server, we have a dedicated server to this, but if it goes down, you'll get a new link. Hopefully it doesn't happen. It hasn't happened yet. We had almost 4,000 people on our system earlier this week, so we should be fine. Good to go. On your right, you'll see polls and a chat function. I've got a poll live there right now. Feel free to go in and answer that question. And also in the chat function, if you want to network with your peers, put your name. I see some people have already started. Name, company, state that you're in. If you want to put your contact info on there, it works too. We're not going to delete it. That is also where you're going to ask questions of our panelists. And we have 5 panelists today, a big group. So feel free to pop in there, ask questions. I will keep track of them and mark them as questions and try to ask them at the end, or if they happen to fit into a topic we're currently talking about, I'll try to squeeze them in. Our panelists can also see your questions, so feel free to ask inline questions with what they're talking about. They'll try to answer them as they go. I'm going to let these gentlemen introduce themselves, okay? Because we have a big group. Tell us what your firm you're with. What's maybe just a brief segment on what you do and how this COVID is. Just briefly talk about how it's affected your business. So we'll start with Brian, and I'll go around the room.
Hi there, I'm Brian Paul. I'm one of the managing principals of Premier Design and Build Group, co-founder. We are primarily an industrial contractor. We have offices in Jersey, California, Southeast Florida, and Chicagoland, based in Chicago. In terms of COVID and how it's affected our business, being in all these different states, the rules are very fluid. Most of our day right now is keeping ahead and understanding what the newest reads are on COVID and how it affects our business, and it's changing hourly right now. So trying to be as educated as we can at the end of the day. It's been nonstop since we've been at home. Haven't been in my office in 3 weeks now, 4 weeks, something like that. So it's been a while and it's been a struggle, but we're keeping in front of it.
Yes, good morning. My name is Vince Sticca. I'm the Director of Training for the Chicago Regional Council of Carpenters Training Center. We have 8 training centers in the Illinois area. The training centers are closed at the present time. We've been closed for about 2 weeks. We do have our staff working, and our members are still working out in the field.
Hi, my name is Terrence Roche. I'm the president with Denk and Roche Builders. We are a full-service union carpenter contractor based in the Chicago area. Do all the carpentry trades, framing, drywall, interiors and exteriors, and with a major focus on design build for low-rise and mid-rise structures. And over the past several weeks, we're about 90% of what we were 2 weeks ago. I've only seen 3 of our projects shut down. Still are in excess of about 225,000 carpenters and tapers out in the field, and just taking it day by day and trying to make the best decisions for all of our employees.
Good morning. I'm Alan Zocher. I'm one of the founding partners of Premier Design Build Group with Brian Paul and Alec, my brother. We are in a transition as it relates to everything that we've gone through in terms of our office is entirely remote at this time. Very limited access to our primary office. I'd say as it relates to field construction, we're probably at 90 to 95% capacity right now. Small transitions happening, but overall, the overall general projects are headed in the right direction and maintaining our schedules.
Hi, I'm Mark Melone, Premier Design and Build Group. I'm the Executive Vice President and Director of Construction. As Alan and Brian touched on, definitely a lot of changes in our world, but we are continuing to operate. It's, a very fortunate position we're all in right now. So, not only are we focusing on doing all those normal things that we'd be doing, but, COVID has brought a whole new plate of items for us to focus on. It's keeping us, to say the least, busy right now.
Well, I'm going to open with a question. I know none of us are scientists, but we've all had to learn a lot about science and try to understand what the timing of all this is. Just bounce around. Give me a real quick, your thoughts. I'm finding a lot of people think we're going to be in this for 18 months, 6 months, 2 months. We'll be out of our homes next week. Where do you fall on that scale? And Brian, let's just start with you. What do you think? Are we going to be in this for a while, or will we clean it up soon?
That it matters what industry you're in, what segment of the industry you're in. Anyone is guessing right now. We have no idea. Such a unique event for us. But in terms of industrial construction, all the signs were there that there wasn't enough capacity out there, and there was a lot of need before this happened and afterwards. And when you start listening to the economists talk, it sounds like that there's going to be a big movement to start to stop doing the concept of just-in-time inventory. So I would expect that there's going to be more manufacturing coming here. I would expect there's going to be more warehousing coming here, and hopefully that will be a catalyst to get moving forward on industrial buildings. It doesn't happen overnight, so if there's a big movement on the industrial side and a continuation of the movement here, I would say that hopefully it ramps up. In terms of the duration, no idea. I think we'd all be guessing. So, hoping for the best.
Yeah, that's a very hard question to answer.
Yeah.
We are fortunate in the Chicagoland area to have about 86% of our jobs working, and working with our contractors as well as our members to keep them safe. Hopefully we can little by little, get back to a normal work schedule, but we don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah, Brian, do you want to, or Terrence, sorry, you want to jump in? Oh, I'm not hearing Terrence's sound. No sound.
Yeah, sorry.
There we go.
So this feels like a crash course in news media literacy.
Right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. There's a lot of content out there, and if we try and look to places that are a few weeks ahead of us and see what they're going through right now. I know that. Well, what do I really know? I know what I'm told, but as far as what I believe, it looks like, the Chicago area, the worst of this is imminent. And I think we're going to know a lot more next week, the week after. As far as going forward, it's hard to say. We see a lot of projects. Our backlog is very strong. We haven't heard anything otherwise. We saw a project just get financed yesterday. So industry-wise, that's about as much as we can tell on a Friday at 10 in the morning.
I think we're going to be dealing with a new norm now. What are people going to be doing? How's the office going to transition? I kind of think that hopefully here within the next 4 weeks, things start opening up, and it's going to be a slow transition back to people visiting restaurants and stores. And then hopefully as things start to progress and social distancing is maintained, hopefully we go back the end of summer to being a normal condition, which is not necessarily the norm that we were used to.
I'm hearing that a lot too. Any thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, I think obviously everyone said the same thing. We're all experiencing. No one really knows what the short term, even let alone long term future is. From our perspective, what we're doing on our job sites, how we're operating, we're approaching it with the belief that this is not going to be something that resolves and gets back to the old ways in the next few weeks or even few months. The plans that we're putting in place right now to deal with the immediate needs, we're expecting those to continue on at least through the end of the summer. So, we're not looking at short-term stopgap measures unless that's what's dictated by the situation. Our approach is to really try and incorporate a lot of what we're doing here into just the future way construction operates.
Yeah, good comments. All right, quickly, I get this question from about 10 times a webinar. Are you going to replay this? For sure. So we started our own YouTube channel. I'm a YouTuber now. And this is the address that'll get you there, the rejournals.com video replay. And we'll have this up by the end of the day. We should have a replay of this available. All right, so the first topic we want to get into is what impact will the stay-at-home measures of the pandemic response have on an industry already facing labor shortages? Will contractors make use of larger automation, or what are the other changes you may see? Or what is the labor shortages? What's that effect right now? Go ahead and jump in if you want to answer.
Harry's probably best to talk to this one.
All right. Well, we haven't seen a labor shortage. We work very closely with the Carpenters Union, and over the past several years, we've gone up as high as 380 carpenters out in the field, and this could essentially be advantageous to the construction industry if you're out of a job right now, and you see your neighbor who's a carpenter has been working throughout this entire period for the last several weeks. Has called out construction as an essential business. Locally in this market, kind of the collar counties, we don't see any problems with labor shortage. As far as the movement towards, off-site fabrication, that's been a norm all across the country. We're a company now that has another manufacturing division. We own 2 roll formers, and we start making all of our parts and pieces sometimes months prior to the job starting, just so that once we're on site, we have the most efficient erection of our structures possible. We've also worked with companies like Skender on their modular and medical pods, and that trend will probably be bolstered by what's going on with the current COVID-19 crisis, because our schedules are always shrinking, and as much product as you can build off-site can be advantageous for a lot of these things when you have that inventory built up and ready to go.
I kind of see as it relates to labor, we have not really seen any issues as it relates to labor shortages. It has been in 2008 through 2010 as it relates to construction. There was a lull definitely in construction at that time, and a lot of people went into other industries at that time. Hopefully now with construction at the standpoint of still being an essential business, other people can come into construction, and we hopefully see right now they're from multiple levels, from plumbers to HVAC guys to tin knockers to fire sprinkler guys. There has been somewhat of a shortage as it relates to people going into the trade. So hopefully this is a good turning point as it relates to getting people who are more in tune and involved in getting involved in construction.
If I can jump in here, building on Alan's comment there, the 2008 through 2013, everybody left our industry. People in college weren't getting jobs, so they had to go to a different industry. So whether it's engineering, construction management, we don't self-perform. So on our side, it's more the engineering project manager side. The lack of having anybody coming to the market during that time period has really affected us now in finding seasoned people who are 8, 9, 10 years into the industry, people who are in the prime of their career, are ready to ascend into their career to the next level. We've been affected by this for a few years now. So in terms of COVID affecting that, I'm not sure what it looks like on the backside, if there's any more effect on that for 10 years down the road, but we've been affected from the recession right now for the last 3-4 years, finding big senior people. They're just not there right now. It's an entire absent population.
Interesting. Well, let's get into the current, what's going on the ground right now. So if you have a construction project in process, have any of them stopped? Why did they stop? And when did they restart?
Well, I can take that one. We have around 86% of our jobs in the Chicagoland area are still going on. Some of the jobs have gone on 2 shifts in order to keep a safe distance between workers. We have had some jobs closed down from hospitals because they're just overwhelmed with patients and don't want any work going on. But it's still been pretty good so far. As far as that labor shortage, as far as skilled laborers go, there isn't a shortage of carpenters in our area. There might be a shortage of superintendents, but I think that sometimes is due to the not thinking ahead and starting to train some of your better people to step into that role until it's a little bit too late. But all in all, I think we're doing quite well. So
back to those 14% jobs that aren't going. Has anybody done anything like walk off the job site and say, I'm not going to expose myself to this? Any kind of fear-based reaction that's happening amongst your team?
Not that I've heard. If anything, we're getting calls from jobs that have shut down and asking us if we know a job that's, that they can go to. But I think it's some of the jobs that have shut down were due to the owners, and the other is the hospitals that just they're overwhelmed with taking care of patients, and they don't want to have that problem with tradespeople there.
Anybody else thoughts on shutdowns?
We've had, as it relates to current construction projects, we have not seen any current construction project shut down. What we have seen is projects in the development or in the designing phase be put in neutral, and more put in neutral to find out exactly what's the net effect going to be. I firmly believe that in the next 2 to 3 months that those projects that were put in neutral or put on hold are going to start to get traction again and start to move forward. But any new construction or active construction, we have not necessarily in Illinois necessarily been put on hold. But in the development stages and the planning stages, we've seen certain ones be put neutral.
Yeah, that's rough. So anybody else that want to talk current projects? Because that's the next, Alan brought up the next step is, what does the pipeline look like? I know the industry relies on having a healthy pipeline to be able to plan for employees and projects and materials.
The Dodge reports are saying that construction is still going on, and it looks like in Chicago we've got a pretty good backlog. There's about 88 large jobs going on in Chicago right now, and there's some coming up, both in healthcare. Block, I believe it's 37 is a huge project that has not started yet. And it all depends on, the future. the future with COVID-19?
Our jobs, we are keeping, as Alan said earlier, we are keeping on track right now with our schedules in our Midwest market here. And it's a lot more cumbersome now. The onus is on us to keep the job sites safe, to provide all these extra measures that are being recommended by the CDC and other jurisdictions out there. And there's a huge shortage of these, just like at home, there's a huge shortage of supplies. Our team has had to get really creative on how to keep these job sites safe. We're making inventing across the country in all of our markets. Wash sinks now, they're buying materials, and we're coming up with ingenuitive ways to make those, finding ways to have social distancing on a job site. Our industry naturally is a teamwork industry in the field. People are next to each other picking up drywall. There's 2 people, 3 people, 4 people activities all over job sites. So we have to work extra hard right now in order to keep on schedule. There's hurdle after hurdle on a daily, moment by moment basis for us right now to get through this. And it's in terms of shutdown, no. In terms of do we have to work at a higher level right now? Absolutely.
So to talk about, Brian, you brought up a great point. With regards to the job site, what does social distancing look like? Is it you guys got to stay 6 feet apart the whole time? How do you share tools? How do you share workspaces? It's got to be challenging.
Mark can much better speak that. He's our director of construction. But we rolled out a program as soon as it started breaking. We educated ourselves as fast as possible, try to understand what the best practices were. We implemented a program, trained all of our staff from coast to coast. And in terms of the specifics, I mean, Mark, if you wouldn't mind jumping in on that side. And I saw Terry raise his hand. I know he has a few points on that too, but please take it away there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very much a function of what type of projects we're talking about. A lot of our work is in the industrial side. So the site development side of it, the initial structure going up, that's almost socially distanced before there was such a thing as social distancing. It's when we get more towards the interiors or some of the more labor intensive aspects of what we're doing, or particularly, if we're doing an office construction, something where, Terrence is familiar with, that's where it gets to be more of a challenge. But I think we attacked this very early on. We've been pushing it from the beginning. We kind of recognized where this was going, and I have to say, in large part, it hasn't been like a lot of things. It hasn't been a dictate coming down from us as the general contractor. The trades we see out there, the guys that are out there, they're professionals. It's one of the advantages of being in the Chicago market that we have a lot of professionals on our job sites, and they want to operate safely too. A lot of these guys, they understand what's going on out there. They understand that there are some risks of operating in this environment, and they want to do everything they can. So it's very much a collaborative approach, and that's helped us to be successful in everything from the social distancing, the hand washing, the sanitizing the sites, making sure that when people share tools, share equipment, they're sanitizing it before and after use. And in large part, I think that's why, relatively speaking, we've seen very low incidences of COVID-19 on our job sites. And we're very optimistic that it continues like that.
So I'll jump in here. When we talk about social distancing, the first thing we have to discuss is what task is being performed, and then performing a task analysis. You need to know who else is working in your area. If you're doing a task that requires 2 sets of hands, how are you going to do that and still social distance? So it has to do with basically just breaking off in small chunks like that and analyzing those tasks individually. And for our part, we have daily huddles every morning where we focus on those tasks. And people that we have out in the field are very well trained. They receive an extraordinary amount of training from the Carpenters Union. And there's always ongoing safety training. And our culture is based around safety. So these people show up every day thinking about how to be safe. So when you throw something new at them, which in construction, we're always throwing new obstacles at our field staff, whether it be the schedules or just the way job sites evolve and how they erect and rise up in the air, the new safety concerns as projects change. So this is another challenge to add, but our folks are very well equipped to adapt to these things and just, basically you got to look at every task you do. And if it involves another person, you got to figure out how you're going to do that safety, whether that's with masks or maybe having two people that live together and drive to work together, performing those tasks, or just finding a new way of doing those tasks.
We've got a great question from the audience here, just real quick. Terrence, Sue says, who pays for the extra precautions in the job site? Does that pass through to the owner or developer? Has there been any pushback on that?
Well, that's a multifaceted answer. There's a lot of hair on that one. So we've been looking very closely at, how much productivity might we lose? We're not really sure. If folks have to stop regularly during the day to wash their hands, if there's tasks that can't be performed efficiently because of the social distancing, and not gathering in crowds. So if employees have to leave the building and go to their car for a coffee break or lunch. So if we lose 20 minutes, 40 minutes of productivity in a day, that's very impactful to our bottom line. I mean, we could essentially be looking at a quarter where our profits could dwindle to nothing, but they're still working and that cash flow. And, just for us as a Denk and Roche is that we've been building our balance sheet since coming out of the recession. So we're in a very good position there, but we're not going out of our way to send requests for lost productivity to our customers, but we have gone about the business of sending out notices as far as, there could be an impact. And if there's something that we can realize and justify and start a conversation with them with, we've been getting very, having very fair, honest conversations with our customers about things like that. And of course, the supply chain and those concerns.
And again, we have no history about this. I mean, we've never been in this situation before. So, the safety part of it, we're learning from day to day. We're fortunate here in Chicago. We have Carpenters have a dedicated safety team that goes to the jobs, makes suggestions, reviews the jobs and tells the contractor some of the things that he can do. But some of the stuff is new, but they're doing a great job, I think. And the members are understanding what's going on. They're trying to protect themselves. They're trying to protect their families when they go home. But everything is new. It's not something you could look up in a book or what did we do last time this happened? There was no last time.
I got to take a quick second to thank our sponsors. Some of these small logos in the lower left threw me for a loop. Premier Design Build, Chicago Regional Council of Carpenters, Powering Chicago, Power Forward DuPage, Chicagoland Associated General Contractors, Sullivan Roofing, International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craftworkers, and International Masonry Institute. Without sponsors, it's really hard for us at RE Journals to stay in business. So we really appreciate the people have stepped up and said, I see the value in webinars and I understand it's a pivot for you and we support that. So thank you to those sponsors. Another question from the audience was now all these job site changes, which ones are here to stay and will that affect timing of projects going forward?
In terms of which ones are here to stay, I think that anything to do with cleanliness, these extra precautions, we've been doing them anyway, but I think we'll be much more vigilant now in terms of having extra hand wash stations, extra sterilization tools out there, for shared tools. I just think in general, job sites have always had, they're a mess out there. So we've had a lot of help out there in cleaning ourselves up and keeping clean. But at the end of the day, I think that the tools will be wiped down more often. Social distancing, someone's coughing out there now. I think forever, for a long time, we're all going to be out there. Someone's coughing in a grocery store next to us. We're going to turn our head now and social distance, whether they do or not. It was when this premieres. I think our actions in general are going to be the more permanent thing than the actions on the job site. And I think the actions on the job sites will just become the norm based on how we think about it.
Yes, off-color joke. I used to cough to cover up passing gas. Now I pass gas to cover up a cough. Anybody else have thoughts on that? What's here to stay, and is it going to prolong jobs? Is timing going to change because we have, like you said, that extra 20% or 40 or 20 to 40 minutes a day?
One more comment. I saw a question on the side here before that. How are we estimating jobs for the future based on a slower production? Alan, if you want to comment on this one, right now we only know what we know, and we're learning right now. So to provide a number out there based on something that we don't know what it looks like is extremely difficult. Jobs need to go. We can't give numbers to the street that are going to kill deals or don't make lease rates calc out on the backside at the end of the day here. So we're all learning together, and we all need to communicate, whether it's the developers, the brokers, the subcontractors. We all need to be working. Everyone on this phone call or on this video conference, there's a lot more communication that's going to need to be had so everyone can understand what the numbers mean, what's been thought about and factored into it. And there's going to be a lot of candid conversations because it's hard to price something when you're guessing and real dollars on the back end that people are locking themselves into.
From a consistency standpoint, also, we're actually out there all the time, whether it's in New Jersey or Illinois or California, typically.
Sounds like Alan's having bandwidth issues. I've got 4 bars on our.
I'll jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
While Alan's talking about that. So I don't know exactly what the old saying is, but, crisis being the birth of innovation. Our greatest asset is our employees. They're going to find ways that they're going to do more detailed analysis on their own of their individual tasks that they're doing during the day of how they erect the buildings. And as they do that, that's where that innovation will come from. It comes from the ground up. It comes from our field forces, and then it works its way into our office and then into our estimates. So we've seen challenges before like this, and most of our best ideas happen at the times when we're going through our greatest struggles. And a lot of that is going to happen organically coming up from the field ranks.
I like that. That's a great point, Terrence. We find out what our teams are made of when we have adversity. Let me get here to the next question. Just give me a second. Oh, the Chicago Spire hole as a scar. So are we going to see some things not get finished because of this? Are there those kind of stoppages going on?
I can't see somebody being that deep into something and pulling the plug right now. Once you're pot committed, the Spire is a completely different animal. Why that went sideways, that's outside of our space. But what you read in the papers has nothing to do with outside forces. That was an internal issue over there, and however that deal went. But in terms of jobs getting shuttered right now, I could see if you haven't broken ground, maybe putting it on hold for a little bit, read the tea leaves. But in order to stop a project in the middle, from our space, I would be very, very surprised.
I think in large part.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Terrence. In large part from what we've seen on a lot of our clients, a lot of our involvement is, there are a few people who are backing off, but for the most part, people are going forward. I think the best analogy I've heard is, we looked at the conditions that led up to things like the Spire and going back 10 years now, that was an economy that the engine just stopped performing, right? It ran out of gas, whatever analogy you want to draw. We're not in that boat right now. What we've done is we've kept the pedal down, but we've also started to push on the brake. We're reining everything in, but the fundamentals aren't changing. And so, obviously all that can change, as we've seen throughout this whole process here, things change daily, hourly, but there's no indication right now of some wholesale change of things. So we expect to see those projects continue on, maybe with a brief pause, maybe with kind of an understanding, maybe even with some redesign to accommodate whatever the new lessons learned coming out of COVID-19 are, but still going forward.
So what I'll say to that point is that, a lot of us, I'm 43 years old, so I grew up in this industry in the middle of and coming out of the Great Recession. And essentially what that's done to us over the last several years is it's really strengthened us. It's forced us to strengthen our balance sheets. It's forced the banks to take a different look at the way they lend. It's forced our government to get more involved with taking the temperature of the banks and making sure that they're healthy. So our health going into this crisis is something that we really have going for us right now. And all those different factors of the way the lending has been done, the strong balance sheets of the general contractors, the specialty contractors, the owners, those things really bode well for us coming out of this. I see that there could be a lot of pent-up demand. And nobody really knows because it's just been so severe. But in the coming weeks, a time will tell. But that's what I see. We still have a really good backlog. And, those economic factors that we had coming into this COVID-19 situation are really going to bolster us coming out of it on the other side.
Yeah, and I hate to ask you to prognosticate, but I love this question. When is the other side in your mind? Are we going to have a bit of a recession post getting back to work? What do you feel like? Anybody?
I read in the Dodge reports that we might see maybe a 10 to 15% drop next year, but they're still predicting 5 years of good construction work in the Illinois area.
That's fantastic.
Every article you read is a different guess at this point. The gentleman you had on your webinar the other day had different opinions on this. Yep. But one of the investment banks was talking about, well, since March was already, we are in a recession right now. We're absolutely contracting. This quarter is shot. The last quarter, we have a good month that those numbers certainly probably went backwards. So when all this comes out, we might be in a definition recession. Sure we are. But in terms of guessing, I've seen anywhere from second and third quarter contraction of 20% or something like that. And then one of the investment banks had the fourth quarter having 20% on its own of an increase. So it's guessing right now with people who are trained a lot smarter than I think all of us are on this topic. But it's all over the board. I think everyone on the phone call can agree that currently today and in March and in the first quarter, we all move backwards in terms of what got queued up and what's getting built and the speed and we're generating it. And hopefully the third quarter is the guess right now in terms of how quickly we can get running and whether or not the fourth quarter we can build some momentum moving forward to 2021.
Alan, I see you're back. Sorry about that. Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to touch on quick that we missed when you were
No, I think Brian has a really good point as it relates to getting things going. The economy as it relates to slowing down, it's momentum of the construction right now is keeping us pushing forward with the current projects that we have. I think what we're going to see is as we push through that there is going to be a lull worth of construction activity and decrease in construction. But I think the fundamentals are there that we can kind of push through that, hopefully here within the next, I'm absolutely speculating on in the next 9 to 18 months, and then back, hopefully, to move forward.
We're looking at this right now, I think, very much through a Midwest lens as well. All of our markets are different. Our East Coast offices are very slow right now. There's executive orders out in New Jersey, New York. We're trying to digest those and what they mean. But in general, those markets are at a standstill. They're handcuffed, and they're trying to get through that. On our West Coast market in California, I think they signed up 3 jobs last week. So in terms of the country as a whole, I think it's different all around. And a month from now, you could be humming along maybe on the East Coast, and heaven forbid something on the West Coast pops up, and they need to go into a holding pattern. Where we see it today, the Midwest, we're open for business. We're struggling to get through everything on a day-to-day basis, but we're keeping moving forward. Our East Coast is very slow right now, and the COVID is much bigger out there, as you see on the news every day. And our West Coast right now, they've done a really good job, I think, of managing COVID out there, and we're humming along and out there. So nationally speaking, I think that when you average it all out, each coast affects each coast. So it really, we're looking at it from one lens right now, what it looks like on the backside. I think you need to look at in the totality and really digest it, and hopefully the parts that weren't as affected can help out the ones that were affected, and maybe there's some neutrality out of it that helps us get out of this a little quicker.
That's a great point about out east. I had read that in our tattletale environment, people were upset in New York City about the construction workers not social distancing. So I think they're dealing with a little different environment. Let's hit that question on construction materials. Are we going to run into supply chain issues? Are you already? What do you foresee for the future?
So before COVID-19 really started to spring up within the U.S., we were keeping an eye on it and how it was spreading through China, because obviously there's a fair component of our supplies that come through China. What we've seen is right now there has not been any major impact to supplies. I'm sure if you're building a high-end office and you're looking for some sort of hand-cut tile out of Italy, that might be affected. But broad strokes across the industry, it hasn't happened yet. One of the lessons, we talk about how we've never been through this, so how do we prepare for it? Well, we have been through issues in past with spikes in prices, be it because of limits in raw materials like oil prices surging, or natural disasters, whatever. So we've seen a lot of contractors who have kind of taken bigger steps to securing their material. In some cases, 6 months out. They have contracts, they have warehouse supplies that take them that far out. And even those who don't, as a normal course of construction, do that. We saw them starting back in January, as this was kind of just a smaller story in the news. They were ordering materials in advance. They were securing it. So as we sit today, I think most of our major trades, that I talk to on a pretty much a daily basis, they're not forecasting any issues with materials through the end of the summer. They're pretty confident in that.
That's reassuring. Anyone else? Let's address this. Go ahead.
A few small supply chain issues. Doors not showing up to a job site because that factory had to shut down. Nobody supplied any details as far as what happened at that factory. But I think everybody's been scrutinizing it so much. And one of the things that we've seen is that with all that scrutiny, we can see that the supply chain that we have is, again, very strong, very robust supply chain. So it's more good news than bad on that end.
Anybody hearing rumblings of cost escalation? Question from Doug.
We hear rumblings all the time about cost escalation. We're trying to sell up on that every day. It's oil's up, asphalt's more expensive. If oil's down, asphalt's more expensive. So we're used to that. I think on the backside, it's going to be what it looks like, how many projects are geared up to go, what people's backlog looks like, and how hungry they want to get. And it just seems that Alan's quote is the rats will come out for the cheese when it's time to release a deal. So it really matters. It really does cycle through. We need to see what it looks like in order to really understand what price escalation is going to look like, in my opinion.
Okay, moving on. I have heard that delivery schedules, especially from overseas, are impacted and shipping costs are all over the place. Accurate?
You talked about supply chain issues a little while ago. Our supply chain issues right now are just like toilet paper in the market, which is domestic, of course, but you can't find toilet paper. We can't find hand sanitizer. We can't find hand wash stations. We can't find printing is back. It just seems that all the things you need to accommodate COVID on our job sites are the things we're experiencing on the supply chain in terms of shipping. And that's all due to the shipping out of China. A lot of the stuff is manufactured, I shouldn't say just China, but overseas, and getting it here and the amount of product over here. Not quite certain if it's sitting on a boat somewhere or just being waiting to manufacture because it's such a need for it. But in terms of getting it over here, we're paying more for things. It'll, on the backside of this, I'm sure we'll find out a little more. Housing is truly the higher costs, but in general, it all ties together right now.
We're involved with a project that's bringing in cabinets from Italy, and everybody's been tracking it very closely. They're going to make an announcement yet today. They made an announcement. They shut down manufacturing in Italy for a week and a half, which is supposed to expire today, and they're supposed to go back to work on Monday. And what we've seen from Italy is that they've been extremely resilient. There was a lot of anticipation of these things coming up and acceleration on their procurement and producing the cabinets and getting them shipped over here. And, knock on wood, so far so good. Everything's been arriving on schedule, and it looks like they could be back on track as soon as Monday to start trying to get back to normal, or the new normal, as it were.
I mean, as far as the transportation side of it goes, I don't think we've seen widespread issues. The only concern I've heard expressed from some people is more of a focus on the trucking side of things. Obviously, there's so many truck drivers out there, and whether they're delivering a load of insulation, a load of steel, or a load of groceries to a grocery store, you still have that body sitting in the driver's seat. So as the demand for products in places like grocery stores and in places like hospitals pushes up, there's somewhat of a concern impact delivery, but it's not a concern that we won't be able to get product. It's a concern that maybe instead of a 2-week lead time, it becomes a 3-week lead time to accommodate for that, or perhaps instead of getting X units per day, you get 3/4 of that per day.
I ended our poll, so if you want to know what the audience is seeing in terms of work stoppages, 29% said yes, they've had a work stoppage due to COVID, and 70% say no, they're still going strong. A good question here that may not be, so tapping into what you all are hearing from your developers and bankers and bidding new projects, how do you feel this will impact commercial real estate market in the future? Demand for, Todd says demand for office space, which we know is probably going to be impacted, but other things. How do you all see the CRE industry evolving or responding?
You're seeing different responses all over out there. I wish there was a broker and a developer on the call here. They could probably better speak to it. But
we'll have a webinar
out there. I've been reading a lot over this last month there that there will be an influx back from the city, back to the suburbs. We'll talk about that. It's speculation, but outside of my skis.
Alan, did you have something?
I do feel that there's going to be more warehousing and distribution. There's been so many people who are stuck in their house, and what have they been doing? They've been ordering from those delivered to their house. So if there's millions of people that are doing that right now, if 10,000 people like it more or the same, then it's going to increase warehousing and distribution from our standpoint. So I do see there being somewhat of a lull coming here, and then all of a sudden people who didn't like it or never used it before being comfortable with it and being more prevalent.
My comment was definitely based on the question itself, which was office space. I agree with Ellen and everything you just said on the industrial side, but on the office space was where I was heading on that one.
All of you, I say most of you are working from home. It looks like. Do you like it? Would you continue to do it as a construction person, or do you like being in the office?
For me, I enjoy being in the office. I mean, there's a certain amount of energy that you have.
Yeah.
Not that there isn't quite a bit of energy at home with all the kids and the dog and the gerbils and toads and the frogs and everything else, but I do miss the office and the energy that you get with being with all the people in the meetings.
I've been at the training center. I haven't taken off any time, and we have all our instructors working, and we're working on putting classes together that we can do online to help our members that are in need of a certain type of class. We're also planning on, once the governor gives us the okay, is to ramp up so that we can get some of the certifications and classes that our members are needed, and also classes that they may need to go work for another company. So we've been working on being able to present some of our classes online, or present the part of the class online, and then when things get back to normal, they'll come and complete the projects here at the school. So our staff is back here and trying to do the best we can for our members.
Yeah, I'm with you, Vince. I've never been this busy before, which is good. Just pivoting. Anybody else? Anybody enjoying working from home?
I think that productivity can be high at home, but there's nothing to take the place of actually collaborating all together. With offices across the country, we've gotten used to remote communication before, video conferencing, and everything like that. So I think we were set up for this pretty quickly, but there's nothing to take the place of being in the same room. In terms of working from home, we're getting a lot done, but there's a lot more things we need to deal with right now than prior to this. Listening to a lot of CDs now I haven't listened to in 20 years because I don't have Bluetooth in my office here. So got that going for us.
Nice.
You know, I have a daughter that is a grade school teacher, and of course their school's been closed now for, I think, maybe 4 weeks. And they are doing learning via the computers. And one of the things that she's told me, that there isn't a day that goes by that a parent doesn't email her or phone her, thanking her for what she's doing, and have realized how important teachers were, because all the kids are at home, and mother is trying to make sure they're doing their schoolwork and keep them away from each other. We don't realize how important our teachers are, how important those healthcare workers are, the doctors, the nurses. We really have to give all these people credit, as well as our firemen and our police. I mean, we can't do enough for these people that have, stepped forward for us.
Yeah, Vince, I don't know if you saw, there's a thank you shout out on the chat room to you. I want to address this question from Albert. What, if any, talks are taking place within the unions regarding COVID-19? Are there going to be new union policies? Anything that comes out of this?
Well, I can tell you that our contractors, they're following what the CDC is giving them, the information that they are giving them. And then, anything that we do here at school, I would imagine our members bring that back to the job site and, try this, try that. But we're all learning. I mean, this, like I've said previously, this is nothing that we could look back and say, what did we do 10 years ago when this happened? I mean, this is something new. In the future, God help us, if something else comes up, at least they could look back and say, well, here's what they did, 10 years ago.
I'll tell you that my point of view, I've had the advantage of, I'm on the board for the Chicagoland AGC, and I've had a front row seat to see how well people at the top levels of the general contracting community, the unions, and local government have worked really well together to try and keep the safest environment possible for this. So anytime you're going through a challenge like this, communication is going to be of the utmost importance. And I'll give a shout out to Tom Cooper and all the folks over at the CAGC, because they've had, a lot of brain power over there working together, what seems like tirelessly, to make sure that that communication is happening, that everybody has an opportunity to do what's best for the employees on all the projects in the area.
One of the things that our president, Gary Perenart, did of the Chicago Regional Council is he has suspended for 3 quarters paying of dues for our members. He also has taken the amount of hours that you need to keep your insurance. He has reduced those hours to help out all the carpenters, whether they're working or not. And it's really something that is really appreciated by our members.
If I can jump in here real quick and give our kudos to not only the Carpenters Union, but all the labor force out there. I've asked our teams, we don't self-perform, as we mentioned before, but I've asked our superintendents, our leaders of our field as well, especially when this was starting up, are the guys in the field that are doing the eye rolls on this, or how serious are they taking it? The labor force out there is taking this extremely seriously, and usually it's a pretty tough crowd, and a lot of invincibility. A lot of them are some younger guys too, or in the crew that are invincible. But from my understanding in our field, that everybody's taking this extremely seriously. They're self-policing this stuff, and it's a huge accolade for all the union guys. We're all union in Chicagoland here, but it really makes our world easier when that is happening, because one guy gets sick on a project, it's just not a project. It affects a lot of people's livelihood right now. We see that the job sites are, for the most part, operating with really taking this seriously and doing what people need to do to try to stay as safe as possible.
To jump on what Brian's saying there is that what we've seen is anybody who's never been on a large job site can't understand the amount of respect and camaraderie that there's out there on a daily basis. When you take a bunch of folks who have an extreme amount of safety training and you hold them accountable to each other for each other's safety, not only whether it be a fall risk or the typical kind of construction's risks, but you add this in, these are some of the safety places that you can be. If we're approaching a new normal and we have to learn how to coexist inside of this environment, one of the phrases they use in safety is the leading edge. Well, construction can be that leading edge because of how we approach these kind of challenges and because of the training that our folks have.
I know everyone on this phone call, everyone on this panel, all would be in agreement here that safety is 100% the most important thing for us right now. Money's secondary, schedules are secondary. The safety of people, our own staff, our office staff is completely remote right now. They're all stepping up. We're extremely proud of all of them. The field guys for us are going out there on a daily basis. They are the ones that allow for all of us to generate revenue of some kind. We're extremely proud of those guys. But from our company standpoint, I assure the unions, I assure Terry's the same way, that the safety of everybody that walks on a job site is our #1 priority. We're not going to waver from that for anything. And we need to get through this more than ever, all working together. We've actually seen that, so we're really happy with what we're seeing, what we're dealing with.
That's fantastic. We are bumping up against time. I'm going to continue to roll this for another couple minutes. If any of you have parting thoughts you want to go through, I'm going to flip through everybody's contact information. I'll leave it up there for 10, 15 seconds at a time. Reminder, we'll send out the YouTube link when you're done to rewatch this. If you have questions for the panelists, you'll see their email addresses. You can send them through me. I'll make sure that they get answered. If you have things you want to get into the chat room real quick, now's your last chance. Again, our time is up at 11, but I'm going to leave the room on for 5 more minutes or so. Any of you want to add last-minute comments, feel free. Or when you're done, log yourselves off, and I'll stay on. Thank you.
Who's going first?
Go ahead.
I just want to mention to all of our members and to all the trades that to keep safe, follow what the CDC says, help out your brother and your sister, journeyman, and just keep up the good work.
Yeah, I just want to say that we're nothing without our people. We take a lot of pride in the fact that we have a great deal of really sharp, really thoughtful, conscientious folks that are working for us. And we value that. And we know that we're nothing without these folks. So we have to ensure that they're in the safest possible work environment. And I just want to take my hat off to them and thank them for all that they're doing.
I think that sometimes the worst situations bring out the best in people. And from top to down, from our developers to our office staff to our field staff to subcontractors, everybody that's been involved, everybody has been part of the team and trying to figure out solutions and not making issues and problems. And it's been such a unique opportunity that all the good brought out and all the people, it's wonderful to see.
I building on what I said a few moments ago, safety of everybody. The union trades, obviously, they're the ones at the front of the line here. Any trade, the visitors to our job site, the municipalities, anybody on our job sites, everybody out there, their safety affects us all. So we're focused on everyone and keeping our job sites and our office, our office staff, keeping everybody safe right now. It's imperative in order for us to all get through this, to just following the recommendations that are out there. If everybody can just buckle down for a little while longer, we get through this quicker, hopefully the less damage on the back end here, and really getting through this and moving forward. But as mentioned on a few of the previous comments there, the collective efforts amongst everyone has been actually really nice to see. And that will continue, and hopefully we can find that new norm and hit the ground running on the backside.
Mark, you gotta go.
Basically, definitely definitely the same thing everyone else has said. Definitely there's a lot of uncertainty out there. We get that. We're all living that in every facet of our lives right now. But myself, I'm very optimistic about where things go moving forward. Not because I have some great insight that someone else doesn't have, but just from what I've seen over the past several weeks and how I've seen everyone adapt and everyone take the challenges and rise to those challenges and do better than I ever would have thought possible. That just gives me a lot of confidence for how things continue to unfold as we move forward.
Well, we at RE Journals, like you, really value getting together as an industry, and it breaks our hearts to not be able to see all of your faces and shake hands with everybody. But we appreciate our sponsors: Premier Design Build, Chicago Regional Council of Carpenters, Powering Chicago, Power Forward DuPage, Chicagoland Associated AGC, Sullivan Roofing, International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craftworkers, and International Masonry Institute. Because without you, we wouldn't be able to do these webinars. So we'll continue to do them. If you have questions that didn't get answered today, email them to me, and we may add them to a future webinar. We want to continue talking because things are progressing daily. We thank our speakers, been gracious. Go ahead. Oh, I missed something. All right. Well, thank you so much. We've had about 200 people drop off, so I'm going to go ahead and end this. But thank you, guys. It was great to have you. Appreciate everybody's time. And have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks for having us.
Happy Easter.
Passover.
Right. Enjoy Easter by yourselves.